Alright, got recording. Continuing going medieval. And I actually have things I can talk about. There were so many things this week. Actually, one of the things that's kind of funny is I just have a note of so many announcements this week. Hang on just a second. Okay, good. It always took a while to hook in. So, yeah, one is we got the Steam Next Fest still going on. It ends on Monday. But I still don't like Steam Next Fest. I'm sorry, I really hate the idea of time-limited demos. I mean, both the idea that, you can only access them for a limited amount of time, which is how the majority of Steam Next Fest demos work, but also the idea of, you can only play for 2 hours and then it stops. It's like, no? Don't like either of those ideas, but that's exactly what, the former is exactly what we're getting with Steam Next Fest, so yeah, I'm not happy with that, but that's just how it always is with me and Steam Next Fest. Not much I can do. But which were different. Yeah, let's turn that up so they actually get to that. Lots of announcements this week. We had, Summer Games Fest. Future Games Show. I think there was one or two others as well. I wasn't even putting it. Well, no, maybe I mentioned some games. I don't remember. But it was enough that on Monday I put up something just covering the weekend because it was like 30 things from the weekend. Then I had another 30 that I had to go through, and I don't always do all 30. Understand? But another whole bunch to do last night for coming out on Friday, which. Yeah, remember, I record this on Friday, I do those write-ups on Thursday, and I actually do have, usually this doesn't happen, I actually did get another piece of news, another press release this morning that I'll try to add in. Now it'll depend, I need to look at it more closely, maybe I don't need to. But yeah, anyway, so many this week, and I'm sure how many I necessarily care about. Yeah, one though, I'm not entirely sure it's going to go. So, THQ Nordic was at the Future Games Show. Oh, no, nope, don't do any of that yet. And they brought with them Titan Quest 2 and did a so-called deep dive, which is 3 minutes. Yeah, that's not really much. So I might do like I did with the previous, that was like 40 minutes gameplay overview thing that they put out. I might take the time to do that, to do an analysis and reaction video to that. We'll see. I mean, 3 minutes, okay, I can still make that like 30. Okay, I mean, I was like 3 minutes in and already at 45 minutes on that previous one, just because there's so many things there that I had issue with. We'll see how many are there in this new thing too. Yeah, it's a summer. They're hoping to get that into Steam Early Access. Titan Quest 2. And I've said before, and I'm repeating it now, I do intend to purchase the game because I really enjoyed Titan Quest 1. It has been a while since I played it. I've just been busy with other things. But it is also, I will be doing stuff here, but I have no intention of doing a full review of it because I want to give criticisms and air grievances about it, such that where it's like, no, I actually want to try to influence this thing. Because I care enough about Titan Quest. I enjoy enough that I want to see an actual sequel to it. Because I would say one thing, if you watched the video before where I did the my own criticism, analysis, and all that. In so much of that, I'm just thinking, this doesn't look like Titan Quest 2. This looks like somebody just making another Path of Exile game, or even Diablo game potentially. I haven't played a Diablo game in a very long time, but it's like there's just certain mechanics that are recognizable for these other examples of the genre. Other and certain design elements as well, like the whole using massive orbs to show your health and mana Whereas in Titan Quest, it's literally just bars and horizontal bars, so it's like they're very clear to read and they don't take up nearly as much screen real estate. But it looks like they will be going to those massive orbs, and it's like I will be complaining about that. I will be. But anyone that's like, oh well, that's how these other games are. That's a new standard. It's like, shut up. I want to see the screen. And it's also I most of the shut up. I mean, I want to see the screen is more just an objective fact. But the shut up is more of a. This is supposed to be Titan Quest 2, right? It's supposed to be a sequel to Titan Quest, and it's also why go to that new standard? Why not stand out by not being what somebody else decided? Be what you decide, but also try to respect what you had before, which was the bars. They're great. And there's gonna be other things like that. I'm sure that will trigger me. No, I mean, I'm completely serious. I'm sure there will be other things that will trigger me. I know that they want to change the health potion system to one that seems a lot like Path of Exile, and I do not. The way Titan Quest 1 works makes sense. There's a value to it, and I still remember in that original thing, they talked about how, oh yeah, it's. Wait, no, it might not have been in the video. It might have been in a write-up that they did, and it's like, yeah, that reason that you just gave. So it's like you will always have it available or something like that. It's like I walk around with like hundreds of health potions in the base game. I don't need anywhere near that much, but a little inventory management isn't that difficult in that game. So the idea, because they want to go to charges on a health potion thing that you get back by going into combat by landing hits, which I despise as a concept. Because it's like, okay, so the only way you can get health is to deal damage, but if you're at low health, you want to avoid your enemies. So the only way to heal is to actually endanger yourself. Who thinks this is a good idea? I'm seriously, it is such a stupid idea. And I don't understand why anyone thinks that's a good idea. I mean, and if anyone's like, oh, but it encourages you to, have to go out and take risks, it's like, but what if you're not a risk-taking gamer? There are people that's exactly how they game, and you're just saying, we don't want you. I was like, the system in Titan Quest 1, it doesn't prevent you from taking risks, but it does allow you to not have to, or at least to not have to play in a risk-taking way. It's like that's a better option than if you want to heal, you're going to have to put yourself in danger, or you're going to have to constantly come out of combat. I'm assuming that there's going to be some other way to heal yourself as well. That you're going to have to be constantly doing that if that's the way you prefer to play. It's like, so you're going to tell the people that have a completely legitimate way to play that you have to not be in action all the time because we don't want that in our design. I mean, I hate that change. I really think it is a bad change, and I want to be able to complain about that. I don't want to do a write-up in a review and then I have to wait before doing that and keep my mouth shut and other things that aren't bugs. It's like, no. I want to be a customer here and say, hey, I don't like this. Here's why. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I mean, it's like 3 minute. I don't know. There's actually part of me that's tempted to just like tack it on at the end of this, but now I'll wait on that. The funny thing is, I do need to check because it's like I had a thumbnail for that. I just have no idea where it might be. Yeah. So yeah, I might have to remake a thumbnail for that, but whatever, that's okay. Last two things I have, well, in a way, three. Some specifications, technical specifications have been put out. Two by PCI SIG, which is the group behind the PCIe standard. They have released the full spec of PCIe 7, which is very, very fast. But, I mean, let's be real, it's not going to matter that much for quite a long time. It's like they finally finished PCIe 7, its specification. They try to double every 3 years, so it was about 3 years ago we got PCIe 6. We're only now getting PCIe 5 drives and such in the consumer market. I mean, we're not going to see PCIe 7 for a while. And even then, I think I've talked about this before. I know I've talked about it before, I just don't remember if it was in one of these videos. We are reaching the point where newer PCIe standards are really only going to matter for, well, should only be used with muxers on motherboards. Because one PCIe 7 lane is equal to 4 PCIe 5 lanes. Okay, so I want you to think about that. You could have a CPU that, and a lot of them have, like, what is it, 32, but actually like 28 or something like that, PCIe lanes coming out of them. Maybe it's only 20, I don't remember. No, 24. No, that's what it is for AMD, because 16 go to a GPU, 4 go to an NVMe SSD. So that's 20 there, and those are direct to the CPU. The other 4 typically go to the chipset. Well, if you can do 1 to 4, PCIe 7 down to PCIe 5, you're now taking in, let's talk about just at 20, you now have 80 lanes if you do that, 80 PCIe 5 lanes. That's awesome. Alright, and I do believe that for the consumer space, that would be far more useful. Far and away more useful. Because I'm thinking about how much storage you could connect that way, how many peripherals you could connect. I mean, it's insane what you'd be capable of doing there. Technically, though, this has been true. You could also have 4 PCIe 3 lanes for every PCIe 5, but they're not doing that. So yeah, hopefully it'll eventually reach that. Because I mean, PCIe 7, even 6, and I believe even 5, it's like, yeah, there's like nothing consumer that really needs that. Which also reminds me, because I've seen some places with the RX 9060 XT, both the 8 gig and 16 gig, people attacking the 8 gig that, oh, this shouldn't exist, it's terrible, because so much data you have to pass through because of not enough of a frame buffer. It's like, okay, what games are you doing? I don't even want to look at this shit, to be honest. But it's like, what games are they doing? Because I'll bet that they are using games that are modern enough and so poorly optimized that, yeah, they're designed around the idea that you have basically unlimited VRAM. So even a slight restriction, it starts running into an issue because the game isn't properly designed there. Use an older game. Use an older game, and I'll bet you find that, yeah, the pressure on the PCIe lanes is minimal. Okay, I mean, it's just... I'm sorry, but that is a reality. That you don't need those... That 8 gig, for the majority of games out there, is plenty. You can create the scenario where it's going to be a problem. Yes. But then the question needs to be, okay, is it a problem because you create the scenario, or is it a problem because it's a problem? And don't get me wrong, I do understand the whole thing with, you know, you do want a GPU capable of playing the latest and greatest games. That's fine. I get that. But it's also, if you're... I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. If you're the consumer that's buying the 8 gig card instead of 16 gig, you're either doing it with the knowledge that it is lesser there, but that's fine for what your purposes are, so it's a fine product. Ignoring pricing. But just say, if that's what satisfies your needs and you can save some money that way, then you're in a fine situation. Or you're somebody really confused and doesn't recognize the difference, but then it kind of becomes a... Well, the 60s level for either AMD or NVIDIA, if you're one of those just confused gamers and just buying whatever looks best, you'd think that they'd be going to like the 70 level, the 80 level, the 90 level, right? Like, you're not buying the $300 class card. You'd probably be buying the $1,000 card because you're just gonna drop the money that way. Because you don't know better. I mean, it's... I mean, that may sound kind of weird, but it is kind of how I see it. As well, that... It's like, who... This card is for people that, by and large, should be aware of that restriction, and also maybe like, yeah, well, I'm not playing modern games, so it's not a problem. or I'm comfortable playing with them not at ultra textures because I'm at 1080. I don't even need ultra textures. Medium will be fine. Okay? And even then, technically, ultra should be okay as well, but that's a little separate. Because, they should be fine if the game is well optimized. If not, well, then you gotta buy. It when the files are loaded in. Okay, actually, yeah. Let me think on that. That actually, I would think that's how it works. So this could be wrong, but this is how I think it works. You have the compressed image on the hard drive, right? That's for some texture. So you pull that, you load that into the GPU. The GPU will, it would make sense to actually keep it compressed where it stores it, but when it works on it, it has to use an uncompressed version. Sorry, but that is a certain reality, that the GPU actually does hold a lot of stuff uncompressed because that's the easiest way to do, well, you can do work directly on uncompressed. You can't always do work directly on losslessly compressed. So you pull it out, have it uncompressed there so that you can do the math on it. Here's the thing though, we've got MIP maps. So even if that asset was originally pulled out, but it's compressed, and pulled from the drive, and it's the 4K asset, if you're only playing at 1080, if you're only rendering in 1080, it can, the uncompressed version might also be just a 1080 version. It doesn't have to be the full 4K. Or whatever that the resolution is. It could do that. It's like with MIP maps, you don't need to load the highest detail version. So you could get away with that. So that way you would still have the full quality accessible, because it is there. It's just my brain just turned off a little bit. It is there. It's just compressed because that's what's on the drive. But it is also I think a lot of this stuff they don't know how to make these assets anymore. It's like we have games now where there's more gigabytes and hours of gameplay in them. I don't remember what it was for The Witcher 3, but that was one playthrough. The one playthrough I did for the review was 150 hours. That was not 150 gig install. Let me look. Just pull up PC Gaming Wiki. Where? Okay, minimum hard disk, it says is 35, recommended is 50. There's a note. Oh, okay, that's not. Okay, 50 as of update 4, so that's the next gen update. So that, yeah, 50 gig, okay. So that means that I basically got 3 hours to every 1 gigabyte. But even then, the original, the minimum 35 gig, if we assume that's the original size, then that's like even better. I got 4 to 5 hours per gigabyte. Whereas today, what do you get for a Call of Duty game? And it's like, you know, just a single player portion, I believe that's a few hours, but some of those are like, what? 120, 150 gig? It's absurd. It's like, how much you want to bet it's because they're just not employing tactics that, yeah, it technically means you are repeating an asset, but who cares? I mean, it's like right now, look at the grass here. Which, here, let me actually, there. So, there were clouds in the way. It's like, yeah, do you think this grass repeats? Sure. Do you see the repetition? Maybe. Maybe you can spot it. I don't really spot it. Does it matter? No. It doesn't matter at all. And it's also, there's tricks you could do here, especially with a surface like this. Because see how it's seemingly bumpy? It likely is not, actually. No, it's flat. It's actually flat. So what you're doing here, what you could do here, is you actually have a singular texture that's in just this being repeated so many times. And actually, you know, right here, that almost looks like a seam, maybe. Anyway, that could be repeated. And you could do things like have it rotate. I mean, yeah. You can be very clever to have this, but let's just say that this is that the grass is actually 16 by 16. That's what the texture is, and then it can repeat. But these apparent bumps, that might not even be in the texture. It is entirely possible that it's actually using normal maps, which that's just vector data. That stuff that's text. That's just a text code in there. That's just saying, hey, here, act as though there's a rays here. So when the sunlight is there, it's saying, hey, this side is lit up. This side should have a shadow. So darken on this side and then darkens it. Adding variation there. So you're not baking it all into the texture, which means that the texture becomes more complex. So it has to be a larger file. Even if it's still 16 by 16, by not baking it in, there's still less variation, so it can compress better. You've just got this layer for adding the shadows. You could potentially also be having other text information to make it appear like here. In theory, this isn't what it looks like, but in theory here, it seems like this would be flatter land. But here, this might be more like a bush because of how it's denser. You could, in theory, have have like tessellation kind of thing there. Data there saying, hey, this should be raised up. It isn't. It's all flat. That's fine. It doesn't need to be more than flat. But that seemed kind of the normal mech thing, where you could do things to make this look more like that. And none of that's in a texture. All that's in vector data, which I said, that's text-based. That's easy as hell to store because it's just text. And some of that could be procedurally generated even. So it would be different every time. But you could do that. And again, you know what that isn't doing? That isn't hitting the memory. It's barely touching the memory. It's hitting the processor more, but it's not hitting the memory much. You can absolutely do things. And I could believe that is something that they're not doing in video games anymore just because, everybody has, a terabyte of storage, so we don't need to. It's like, no. There's a reason it was done this way. And it's like, well, the GPUs are also so much more powerful that you can put this stuff on the GPU. So it's same argument that, well, why should we hit the storage when we can just hit the GPU? It'll be so cheap there. And I'll also mention this. The part of the reason tessellation exists was normally every vertex. I think it's safe to assume this game is not using tessellation, but every vertex, right? So I'm looking at this clay pile here. All those vertices, the CPU is having to plot out and then pass to the GPU to tell to basically do the calculations and paint it in. But every vertex is itself a draw call, right? What tessellation does is it basically has the GPU do many of the draw calls, not all. But the idea to it was so that the CPU could send far less data, have to do far less processing. Gets to the GPU, and GPU's like, oh, okay, I know to add in extra vertices here, and here. Okay, so because the GPU can do that much faster than the CPU, just by the nature of how GPU works. It's the way I've put it before. A CPU is like a graphing calculator, has a lot of functions, but is a single graphing calculator. A GPU is more like a single thread on that is more like a simple scientific calculator, but there's thousands of them. But for the math that it needs to do, that's all you need. Most of what a GPU does is linear math. You're not doing calculus on there, which some graphing calculators can do. Okay. So, well, the GPU doesn't need to do calculus, and this is an analogy, to be clear. I'm sure GPUs are in part doing calculus, but it still is. They don't need to do that. They do the simpler stuff, but they do a lot of it. I mean, it's so many years ago, back in the heterogeneous compute days, some were predicting that GPUs would end up taking over a lot of functionality because, oh, look at how powerful they are. It's like, well, no, it's not that they're powerful. It's that people start realizing how to program to a GPU better for general compute purposes. But no, CPU's still going strong. They've got, in some cases, better handling of that kind of math. But on its own, they're not. They still have the specific purpose. Now, also, I just want to add, this cloud obviously does not exist. It's just a map that the GPU is rendering. It's calculating out and saying, hey, darken here. I'm saying, again, in some cases, that makes sense to do. In other cases, it makes sense to bake things in. It depends. But I can believe that today they've gotten lazy. That it's like, well, we don't have to do that kind of optimization. Let's do other things. I'm just thinking, in theory, because I could believe there's only so many examples of the field maple, and that it just rotates. But in that case, then technically, because they would only get so tall, this shadow could actually be pre-rendered. In theory, I'm not saying this is what they did. In theory, you could have a shadow pre-rendered, and then you're just warping it. So like you're adding some blur to it because of the distance. You're warping it then because it moves during time of day. You can kind of see it swaying now. Also just the warping itself, which is technically having to match the movement of the tree, but that is supposed to be based on the wind, which you know what that wind is. You can apply the same warp here. You can project it down onto that. Yeah, there are so many different ways you can optimize things so that you put more pressure on the VRAM, put less pressure on the VRAM, and such, that the idea that no, you need to have it be more than 8 gig. It's like, yeah, you're only looking at games that aren't necessarily that well designed to use 8 gig. It's like once you consider other games, and it's like, nah, games where it's like 8 gig was plenty, you'll look at them and be like, oh wow, this is still an amazing looking game. Why do we need more? And this isn't like, the old thing, what was it that Bill Gates said, who needs more than 32 meg of RAM or something like that, or 128 meg of RAM or storage? It's like, it's not quite that, because that was he also had no idea what PCs would come to be used for, the extent to which they would be used. But this is The Witcher 3 still looks really good as a game. Just Cause 3 still looks really good as a game. Both play very well. I'll even say Red Faction Armageddon looks very good and plays very well. So, yeah. I do realize I've been doing so little actual gameplay stuff here, but I mean, a lot of it is just handling itself at this point. It's like mainly I was just getting them to actually do this work. Yeah, I mean, why can't we go back to those days of having the games that are they're fun and they're good looking and well optimized, but they're not crazy at pulling down performance. And for what? I mean, guess what? Those are both, even original pre-next gen update with Witcher 3. That's annoying. That was still all rasterized and looked very good. There's also Hitman 2, I think it is, where they've got I think I talked about this not too long ago, with the real-time reflections, not using ray tracing, demonstrating that, hey, yeah, this is completely achievable in rasterization. I mean, we need to go back to that era, which wasn't even all that long ago. It does make me wonder, because I've been hearing good things about, other things are taking my time, but I'm hearing good things about Expedition 33, and what I've seen of it also seems to, like, when seeing trailers and such, does seem to look good, so I do kind of wonder a bit about its graphics, but yeah, I mean, it's basically, that's just the reason why I'm mentioning that is the people that made those games that still, despite being years old, Expedition 33 is not that old, but the years old games, even decade old games, the people that made them, they're still out there. They still have those skills, and there's still people that can learn those skills, that can rise to that level. But they're not necessarily the ones making the games you hear about because they're not with a big studio. They're not necessarily the ones being listened to if they are at the big studios. That's nothing that it sucks, but it's technically possible. It's potentially true. No, stop that. Okay. Yeah, now that does make me wonder, because only like mining up there, and I want down here mined as well. Wait a minute. Now I'm very confused. Son of a bitch, when did that happen? Two, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't seem right. Thank you. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, when the hell did this happen? I'm certain I had things here. I have no idea. You know what it kind of makes me think about? In Satisfactory, the sound of a power grid blowing can be played across the entire map, so you know that something broke. I kind of wish that happened here, because like, what the hell happened here? So I just don't know, and I have no idea when it happened as well, which is part of what's also annoying me. Because this should not have happened. I am 100% certain that I did in fact have this short up. I mean, it is as though somehow the beams got destroyed. Which would explain it. That would definitely cause this. But why would they have been destroyed? I have no idea. Absolutely none. And that's pissing me off. But it's also, how much material did I lose because of this? I'm sorry, I am very annoyed by this. Alright, yeah, so that was PCE 7. That took me off on that tangent. Ah, okay. And no one wants to do anything there. But also from PCIe SIG, they released the specification for the PCIe optical interconnect. So the idea here is, over an optical connection, having a way to send PCIe lanes. Which, what would that be used for? Well, likely not in consumer parts. Maybe, but I doubt it. But it would be like, so you can have it in a data center from one rack to another, full PCIe lanes using an optical connection. And it mentioned this was based on a revision of PCIe 6.4. So talking PCIe 6 speeds at least, and PCIe 7. So that's quite a bit. And that could mean, it even mentioned like the, wait, no, that was a different thing, because it was also the Ultra Ethernet Consortium putting out the UEC 1.0 specification. But still is being able to connect across more efficiently across multiple racks and such. That's a powerful thing, and I'm certain data centers will put that to use. But as I said, will consumers? I doubt it. Yeah, the Ultra Ethernet Consortium 1.0 standard. Honestly, looking at that press release, and I will admit it was getting late, so I was reading, but I was also skimming. I didn't see anything really telling me specifics in it. Now, true, that was in the press release. The actual standard is out. In theory, I could look at that, but I didn't, because I'm sure that's going to be a lot of stuff that I will not understand. By the way, this is another thing that it's not like they would need to... Well, actually, no, there might be some pre-rendered animations for the water hitting there, but how they're placed, their level of transparency and such, that can all be calculated at runtime, not like having to already been figured out. The pattern of the rain falling. Come on, finish with the autosave. And I might actually stop right here. Yeah, the specific pattern of the rain falling, that could very easily be repeated because it is animated, but the transparency could be varied so that it looks like it's more intense in one spot, less intense in another. So it's like there's so many things you can do, so many ways you can do that stuff. But anyway, the Ultra Ethernet thing, that did talk about being able to have devices in separate electrical domains and optical domains. So I assume that refers to you'd be able to have it where like one rack is connected to another rack, but these are on separate power circuits, so if one power circuit fails, the other is intact. But yeah, it wasn't talking about speeds or anything, but it was talking about the specification is for a full stack. So that's the integrated controllers, the switches, the cables, all of that. But I just like the fact that it is the Ethernet consortium, so in theory that should be keeping to the same Ethernet plug. The cables may change, but the plug itself. So that I could see potentially reaching down to consumer. More so, at least earlier than PCIe 7. I mean, that again, we'll just have to wait and see. But it's still, I like Ethernet. Ethernet's very nice. But still, the ultimate cable is coax. It is. And for anyone that doubts that, for anyone that thinks I'm being silly, consider this. All of the way cable works, right? Cable television, all those channels being carried on the same line at the same time. Now, in the SD days, yeah, sure, that was hundreds of SD channels, and you might think, oh, well, that's not much. Yeah, but today, how many of them are full HD? How many of them are just HD, which is 720p? How many of them are full HD? How many of them are 4K? And there's not just hundreds, but thousands of them. And it's all carried on the same exact cable. It's just one coax coming in. Oh, and by the way, your internet is also running through that line at the same time. It's all being carried there on one cable. You just need a tuner that knows how to be like, okay, I want this specific frequency. This is where I'm looking. So now I can pull out just that frequency and then start doing the processing to get the data out. Right? We are talking potentially terabits. I'm certainly gigabits of information on that line, and that's been the case for decades. That is the ultimate cable. Optical, I'm actually not sure if it is as good, because while yes, it is simpler at being just glass, and potentially because it's using, well, coax is also using light. It's radio waves, so not optical, not visible light. But coax seems to be far more resilient, in my opinion. Like optical cables, they are glass, they can break. They can be very flexible as well, don't get me wrong there. But it just, and then you need special ends. I mean, true, you need special ends for coax, but still, those have been around for decades. I mean, it's a lot easier to make coax than optical cables, especially long ones. So, yeah, I mean, coax is the ultimate connection, but Ethernet is awesome as well. What is that, RJ45? I don't remember, but it's still, that's an amazing connection. Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. USB-C is nothing compared to these things. Compared to Ethernet and compared to coax. And it's also, coax is it's not reversible because it doesn't need to be. It's a circle. It's a freaking circle. You screw it in. I mean, yeah, you do need to screw it in, but it's still, I mean, it's like, come on. I'm sorry, I really, USB-C is such a stupid thing. It is. A is better because its physical design makes it much stronger. I was like, people complain, oh, I put it in upside down, then I flip it, and it's like, then it still doesn't go in. So I had it right the first time, I was just missing. It's like, yeah, but with USB-C, I can just put it, yeah, but it's also, look at the USB-C port. It is so much smaller. I hate when I have to plug one in. All right, because sometimes I do that, and you know what happens? I feel like I'm going to break the damn port or the plug. I've never felt that with USB-A. Never. That thing is stocky. That thing is built. That is robust. That is safe. And also, I've got at least one thing where it's USB-C. I can't use any old cable with that because it doesn't always clip in properly. Okay, I've never had that issue with USB-A. Okay, it's like, don't get me wrong. I get why people like USB-C, but it is not the superior port. Even to USB-A, it's not that bad. It's not better. And also the fact that it's not one port to rule them all either, because there's like 10 different variants of USB-C. I mean, yeah. Because there's the different, USB 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.2 by 2, USB 4 that are there, USB power delivery. Some of the power deliveries don't convey data, some do. I mean, it's just such nonsense. And also, I think it varies whether or not the alt channel stuff works based on cable and such. I mean, it's a terrible standard because it's not a standard. It's just a name that they did all these different things on. Anyway, I think that's enough of my ranting. Ethernet is awesome. Hopefully, this Ultra Ethernet thing comes to be impactful. All right. See you next week. Well, next week might be a little weird. We'll see how that goes. Just I got vacation coming up, and so I'm not sure how that'll influence how I want to spend my time on this or not. So yeah, see you next time.